Hello and welcome to this piano Pandemictivities video, and today we're going to explore the Prelude in B minor, opus 32 number 10 of Sergei Rachmaninoff. There's a lot to say about this prelude, so perhaps we'll divide this video into a few segments. First, we'll discuss some of the backstory that goes with this, because there's actually a lot of extra musical things that one should know when playing this piece. First of all, it is said to be inspired by a painting of Bücklin called Heimkehr, Die Heimkehr, which means the return. And there it is, the painting you can look at. And the idea is this guy is a soldier, apparently, from the sword, who has been off maybe a long time. And he's returning probably to the little place with the lighted window. But he's not entirely sure what awaits him. He's been gone long enough, maybe life has moved on without him. So the idea from this painting is that, Rachmaninoff was very aware of the sense of lostness and exile, even though he was not in exile when he wrote this piece. It was as though he had a sense that this was his destiny. So people say. Anyway, many people comment on the connection between this painting and the piece, although I'm not really sure if there's primary evidence where Rachmaninoff said this. There are other paintings, particularly Isle of the Dead by Bücklin, which he definitely was working on and inspired by when he wrote that tone poem. So anyway, that is the supposed origin of the piece, this painting. Secondly, the sound of the piece, the overall sound. I had played this a number of times when I was younger and studied it before I realized this piece has no 5/1 cadences. Never ever does it go in B minor in any form. It just simply doesn't use the 5/1 relationship, and that led me to start seeing just how unusual and odd the harmony is. This is a very modal sound, and it is closely related to the sound he used for his choral music. If you really want to hear the sound of that, listen to the all-night vigil, also known as Vespers, unaccompanied choral music, and you will definitely hear this sound of using the diatonic scale, a little bit of chromaticism, not much. It can go on white notes for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, but also avoiding any kind of standard functional harmony. There aren't any 2/5/1s. There's no shave and a haircut 2 bits. It's just a very amorphous, non-committal kind of modal sound. And what it does, it creates a sense that things are just going and going and going, and there's no resolution. It's like on a different time scale. And the choral music definitely feels like that. It feels like it's just suspended from a normal business day. It doesn't work on the same time scale. So it's really quite interesting to look at. And by the way, one of the things he uses very frequently is parallel fifths, and you can even see them right here. These very clear exposed fifths that move in parallel motion. He absolutely used those. That's part of his modal language. It's not because he flunked theory. It's because this is the sound he was after. Another characteristic we see is the dotted rhythm here that appears throughout the first section, and then when we get back to the end, it comes back. This is not an obsession, I wouldn't say. It's not everywhere in his music, but there are enough examples of it that it might be considered a characteristic rhythm. So the Prelude in B flat minor from opus 32 shows it, as does the Prelude in D flat. We also see it in the second sonata, the B flat minor sonata. So it's one of his little characteristic gestures. Of course, of great importance is the idea of the bells. Now, bells are central in the Russian Orthodox, not just in the church, but in the organization of life. The bells are always ringing to mark different things, just the passing of the hours, of course, and church services and festivals and deaths and alarm and everything. Bells are the sound that mark the important things in life. And Rachmaninoff had this sound all the time. Not just these single ringing, like this. That's a bell, okay? And then here's another one. But later, these tremendous bass chords. Those are the ringing of the largest bell in the collection of the church, which is known as the Blagovest. Then you also, after that, even in this section, these rapid ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta, that actually resembles the sound of Orthodox bells. If you've ever actually heard them in person, there are different patterns that cycle through. And this very much sounds like that, those kinds of patterns. And of course, with the large bells punctuating everything. And then with this cadenza, if you really let it ring here, you'll get the piano to ring like the overtones of a lot of bells. So more on that as we get to those sections. But the presence of bells, the sound of bells, and their overtones in forming the harmony is very important in this music. Okay, next we have this weird little chromatic motion right here. And that appears again here, there, very prominently at the end of the piece, here, there, and then the very end. The B major to B minor, which I always thought was exceedingly strange when I was young. This is a quote from the opera Sadko by Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. The particular number in question is the Song of the Indian Guest, and it's this guy who's traveled far from home, and he's singing about homesickness. So this falling chromatic thing, and there's the example of Sadko, this falling chromatic idea and shifting between major and minor is symbolic of homesickness, all which again supports this idea of the painting in the first place. Next, another important feature that we'll see a lot is the idea of the ninth, okay? The dissonant ninth above the bass. So many examples, but here, for example, there's the F sharp. And we have sixth and 11th as well, but the ninth, and here it is there as well. But most importantly, we have the idea of when the big moment starts, we have B to C sharp, okay? So there's C sharp over B. And then as we move along, it keeps repeating that. And then it goes to E over D. It does that for several measures. And then F sharp over E. And then A over G. Okay? So this appears over and over and over, and in other places in the piece as well. So the dissonant interval of a ninth. Next, Rachmaninoff was rather polyphonic in his writing and thought in terms of layers. And he had a little notational system by which he indicated the differentiation of the layers. So he used 3 symbols, or we could even say 4 symbols. And from most emphatic to least emphatic, they are the accent mark, that is the little reverse hairpin that we see here. That's the most important thing. And if you see that over a note in Rachmaninoff scores, that is to receive the highest level of emphasis. Next is the tenuto marking, just a straight line as such. There we see it. There we see it. Okay, and that's the middle marking. It's emphasized, but maybe the overall dynamic level is not as high. Then we have the dot here, 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 and that's the third level, which is of less noticeability, less volume, but still somehow significant. And then you have nothing, which is the lowest level, the fourth level. And these markings are really very helpful when you look closely at his scores to determine what you're going to bring out, how you're going to orchestrate it, so to speak, or how you're going to voice it, as we would say in the piano world. So those are the 4 levels of his little plan. Next, we always have to keep in mind one of his characteristics is long, long melodies. And very often the melody involves playing a note and then going off and dealing with some figuration and coming back and playing another note and going off. And in so doing, younger musicians, less experienced musicians, often don't hear the continuity of that line. Just because I went off and played something else doesn't mean that line stopped. And so, for example, a good example is here, where we have this melody. See, there's the two-note marking, A. How long does that A last? That A goes 2 beats. So we're in 4/4. That's 1, 2, 3, and it goes to there. And notice that the slur, it's like strong, weak, okay? And then that one ties over. And then we get there, strong, and that one goes to there, weak, and that one ties over. Here's the next one. There, 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 there. Where does it end? It's still going there, there, there. Dum, da, dum, dum. And all the way it even connects to this next thing. So this entire section is one melody. One melody. But the fact that you have to go all over the place and play these dotted rhythms will definitely distract you from making that line into something very, very clear. So one must read very closely in this music in order to really understand what's going on. So that's a very, very quick introduction to this piece. In the next part, we will start going through measure by measure and working on it. We'll see you next time. Ciao.